hug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun?
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jackbooty cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Oh, right in the streets, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.TV. My name is Michael, and I'm glad I'm not a DNC staffer tonight.
I'm Nicholas, and I'm just happy to be employed for the time being.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I'll tell you what. There could be some like bankruptcy or something like that in the offing. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. A lot of people are out there. Trying to put meager ends together to make them meet. Put some food on the table, a roof over your head, and clothes on your kid's back. And you got to have a way to protect yourself and all that, and you got to be able to look out for the bad guys who are trying to get yours. And best way to do that is to make sure that you're armed, you are competent with your weapon, and that you are practiced.
I fully agree, and I'll tell you what. I think just by reading the writing on the wall, everybody should have a concealable. And by concealable, I mean it would fit underneath your clothes, and I'm not talking about shoving a 12 gauge down your pants. You should have a handgun. You should have something that is readily portable, that you can conceal in a small bag or on your person, and become intimately familiar with it and adequately trained and fairly accurate.
Definitely. So one of the things I'm going to go ahead and drop on here into chat is a linky stinky, and it's basically going to talk about the Connecticut State Court. Basically, their Supreme Court has dismissed the Sandy Hook parents' lawsuit against Bushmaster and for the deaths of their children. So this was a lawsuit that was never going to go anywhere. Gun makers are absolved against any kind of indemnity for their weapons being used in the commission of a crime. Sounds to me like any two-bit lawyer with a law degree should have known that this is a legal precedent.
Well, and a lawyer should have known that. But if you are a lawyer who is being pressured by Bloomberg-backed groups to accept this, and you are being offered this great big contingency fee and probably some cash on the side, to go along with the possible 40% collection on the settlement. Who cares? You get, as any fan or any American actually knows, there's no bad publicity, and Trump is proof of that. And what's going on, that just shows it. We do not hold auto manufacturers liable for any stolen vehicles and any sort of shenanigans that comes along with that. We do not hold any alcohol manufacturers.
Think about it. Yeah, we don't hold Budweiser, liable for when somebody gets drunk and causes a DUI and afford,
we do not
to go with it.
We do not hold gasoline manufacturers liable for the fuel that powered the vehicle and caused whatever calamity that they could possibly gin up at Dewey
Climate
Feet in the
change.
house.
Climate change.
Climate change, and whatever they could possibly link back. The only thing that they consistently do this with is firearms, and I mean it shows a complete and clear agenda to get rid of the firearms, to regulate these things and
regulate them into oblivion.
Exactly. The power to tax is power to destroy.
Yeah, whatever this is, whether it's the Bloomberg mayors against illegal guns, every town for gun safety, mothers against illegal guns, whatever, corrupt former senators and secretaries of state to take your guns, whatever organization this is, this had to be funded by a very very deep pocketed person, and the problem is that with WikiLeaks coming out, everybody's eyes are being opened, not just to the level of corruption of one person, but the level of corruption that is, endemic to the entire system.
Let me check CNN right now. I'm sure they have some breaking news about Trump referring to a woman's genitalia 11 years ago.
Yeah, well, you see, you don't have the right to fact check CNN. CNN has the right to fact check and bring it to you.
And as Chris Cuomo said, if you look at WikiLeaks, it's illegal. You have to get it from the media because they are different.
There you go. Media 101.
Right. And remember, it helps if you have a lot of money and you are a Hungarian Sonderkommando.
There you go. So, hey, speaking of old things that are still in style, let's take a look at Henry. We've profiled Henry a couple times over the show.
Henry's got an interesting product lineup, and yeah, let's hit this. This is a pretty interesting item right here.
So, one of the things we've talked about is their Golden Boy series, the Big Boy series. They're going to start selling in 2017 a series of 410 caliber shotguns, and the interesting thing is, like I said, lever action. So, most people think of a lever action shotgun. They actually kind of fast forward to Terminator 2, and they start looking at the one that the Terminator was using while he was riding the motorcycle driving through the
those are
LA reservoir.
That's a Winchester 1897 is what that is.
Exactly. So I mean that's in the public mindset. I think that's what they think about when they think about lever action shotguns. But Winchester, like you said, Rossi, Marlin have all had them, but they've been discontinued.
Giaffa has them. Giaffa has them.
Right.
And I believe there's a Chinese company that's Hawk who makes copies of 870s. Basically, a copy of the 870 action. It's a little bit different. You can't use 870 parts in a swap, but it's basically the same firearm. They make, I believe, Hawk is just a division of Norinco, of course.
And everything. If you know anything about China, Norinco is everything in their defense industry. They had 52 different companies, but they're all Norinco.
Right, and honestly, I'll be very blunt and honest. Every Norinco product I've ever had my hands on has performed as advertised and as intended. I've never had any sort of problem with any Norinco item. I would be not hesitant to purchase another Norinco item.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be an interesting offering coming out of Henry. Anthony Peridot is going to probably get this introduced at SHOT Show, and it'll be something that I think a lot of people will be kind of chomping at the bit because.
We'll look at it. 410 is a relatively popular caliber. A lot of people like it. It'd pair up nice with a Taurus Judge. I find 410 to be almost kind of on the pricey side as a shooter. And I think that's probably, with the 410 cartridge, I think is where Henry will end up stopping this line. I don't think Henry will beef up anything to take on, say, a 12 gauge or a 20 gauge in a similar pattern. And I'm going to say that just out of the consideration for Henry's construction, and this is by no means a critique. It's just one of the ways that they bring a value price product to the American shooting public, and that unfortunately has its limitations. I do not think that Henry's current construction methods would probably stand up to repeated 12 gauge, as they're pretty much a zinc Zamax style receiver. It's not a solid steel or a solid brass receiver. It's usually plated over like that zinky Zamac kind of stuff. And that's not to say that it's not quality or anything. I mean, they're definitely functional, and they do command a very nice price. I just don't think it has the long-term durability you'd need for something with as much, quote-unquote power and recoil as a 12 gauge.
Yeah, well, then that's one of the things to consider. Was it the Remington 870s suffered some quality control issues with their 12 gauges not long ago?
Yeah, Remington has suffered quite a few. Let's just say dinks to their reputation since their acquisition by Freedom Group, and their gobbling up of Marlin and a few other groups or a few other manufacturers under their name. I think they've gone to more of a profit-based model rather than a quality-based model. And there are a lot of concerns with the finish and the function on the 870s. There's people right now who say a brand new 870 does not work like an 870 that was made in 1990.
Right. Well, and that's one of those things to consider. I mean,
and that's not just exclusive to Remington. We can look at companies like SIG, and we'll just take a look at the SIG 226 Legion, which is a double-action 9mm pistol. And the Legion is sort of an upgraded model. It's, with the front under Picatinny rail, and, it's got a special finish, and it commands a special price. I believe they cost about $1,300, $1,400 a piece, brand new, and it's kind of a sought-after prestige item. But I've seen many, many pictures of this $1,400 handgun made by a reputable manufacturer that's got, seriously, it's got special lead coating on it. I mean, this is monkeys with spray cans who applied this, special rust-free finish on it. It's gloopy. It's got color changes in it where it shouldn't. It's, I think, substandard, not $1,400 by any means.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week was, some affordable shotguns. In my area, I've said it before, the shotgun is king out here, mainly because land is so hard to come by. You got to be a member of a sport shooting range in order to get out and do some rifle shooting at distance. But shotguns, you can pretty much throw a trap machine out in your backyard, and you can throw clay pigeons and do that. I actually went to a local, it's a small mom and pop gun store, and he's taking guns in on consignment a couple times, and he had a Browning made. Now it tells you how old this is. This is a Browning made in Belgium, but it said Browning, St. Louis, Missouri, double barrel shotgun. No, it was a single trigger and no trigger, or no barrel selector on it. What do you think that would go for?
Oh, geez, that sounds like it's pre. Oh, I'm gonna say that's way before 62, 63. That's probably older than 1950. I'm gonna say that thing was going for $1,500.
$600.
That's a screaming deal. You should almost jump on that. You should mortgage a child.
Yeah, get a kidney. No, I mean, I was surprised. I took a look at it. First thing I did was take a look at the condition of the safety, because sometimes with those safeties, you'll notice that there's a little bit of play in them. Put the barrels to the stock and locked it up. Wiggled it back and forth. Absolutely no play. I mean, locked up like a safe. Really, really surprised about that. There was some light fading, light pitting on the metal scroll work on the action, and then breaking open the action, taking a look down the barrels, there was a slight bit of pitting, but nothing that I think would really impact performance. yeah, I was at that point starting to think of which rifles do I not use that I could sell this guy in order to get this.
Yeah, yeah. A Browning double is usually kind of that's almost a prestige item. It's very well manufactured. It's a lifetime weapon. That's for damn sure. And you don't really see a lot of them anymore. I think brand new. I think those things are probably $2,500 brand new.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about this is I asked the guy because I was like, you're such a small mom and pop shop. You're literally 2 miles down the road from where I live, and I like to get to know the mom and pop shops because they have to find their niche, and they have to be able to work that kind of angle in order to maintain a customer base, because they just had some big competition open up within their service area. We just received the new combination of Dick's and Field and Stream. They same company, they just opened up
Right, they're just
side.
gonna
Right.
and end up dumping product at a rate that they can't even compete with.
Right. So, and this guy's niche is older, historic weapons, military weapons. And I started looking at his stuff on the wall. He did have a Chinese 870 clone from the God. I can't even. I even study this place and I can't even say the name.
It's either Zhuangzhou Industries or it's Hawk.
Yeah, it was a Quick We Hear Eagle Group, and that's from somewhere in Lanzhou, China. He had a nice Marine. I believe that's a 590.
I'll tell you what, I think those Mossberg Marine 590s are the bomb. If I had extra $600 sitting around, I'd buy one of them. Those are nice.
Interestingly enough, like I said, he has a couple Mosins, couple both the 1948 and the German 98 Mausers. So he had the 48 from Yugoslavia. He also had a actual La Coruña 8mm Mauser from Spain. He had two M1As on the shelf. And I asked him, I said, it's kind of odd that you've got two of these M1As on the shelf. And he goes, yeah, about that. So all the nice shotguns and guns that you see here are from a guy in town who's, unfortunately getting a divorce. And I was like, oh, stop. You don't even have to say anymore. I'm like, he's having to cough these up. He's like, yeah, because the woman actually knows how much they're worth. I was like, oh,
yeah, well,
no.
that's almost kind of a rarity when you find people who are selling a loved one's item, and not to be sexist or anything, but usually to find a woman who knows what it's worth it's usually kind of rare. I did notice that during the Great Big 22 outage of 2013 and onward, that I knew it was bad when I started seeing a lot of women selling 22 long rifle.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing enough about this is this guy does stock ammo. He interestingly says, I don't even bother to buy 22. He says, I can't compete with the big box stores that get them in on pallets. He's like, I can't move it fast enough to justify me buying it. He said,
right.
He's got to deal with the 7.62 by 39, the 308, the 30-06, and the 8mm Mauser. He said those.
Let's talk about those Mosins you said he had on the wall. Mosin the gun is one of the firearms that in the current popular culture is viewed as like the perfect introduction firearm. And I personally think it is the perfect firearm to not introduce somebody into the shooting world.
Yeah, absolutely not. You're talking about the 7.62 by 5.4R, the rimmed cartridge. This was the service battle rifle, which basically just got the Soviets, or the fledgling Soviet industry going, as well as the Red Army through World War II, and then basically allowed them to conquer, half of Germany.
What were the prices on the ones that your boy had on the wall? Did you happen to take a notice of that?
Yeah, so I did, and I looked at the price first, prior to him really paying attention to what I was looking at, and because it was on the wall behind him, and I was able to just, kind of make out the price of what he was asking for it. And before he told me that they were consignment, I was kind of thinking, God, I hope that price isn't firm. So he had a Mosin on the shelf with a hexagon receiver that he has co-signed to sell for 300. And then I said, yeah, that's kind of interesting because when you're going and you're looking at a Mosin, you're looking to spend anywhere between 200 to 250 depending upon condition. And I said I've even seen guys going into Gander Mountain trying to spend 325, and I'm like, that's on the upper end. And he's like, yeah, I think he's willing to play a little bit because, like you said, he's trying to offload. I mean, literally the guy has 17 weapons on the shelf that he's trying to consign and sell.
Yeah, but I mean that's I can see him not moving them because honestly he doesn't make any money until they sell, and he's not out any sort of inventory, and it makes the shelves, and it makes makes for interesting eye candy for shoppers.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing that did surprise me, so he was asking 300 for that Mosin. He had one of the M1As he was trying to sell for 1,200, and this is one with a rebuilt barrel. The stamps come in like 1947. So Springfield. There was one that was a Springfield Armory, and there was another one was an IBM. So these are older rifles, but an M1A for $1,200, man, yeah, okay.
I think it's a little bit interesting what people want on a consignment.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that a lot of the consignment deals, I think, depending upon your area, you can expect to go for anywhere between 10 to 15% of the sale price is what the seller is going to have to kick over to the shop. But you're kind of hoping you build that into the price of what you can ask people for, and you really gotta. I think your weapon has to speak to people in order to come in and do things like that and buy them on consignment, because a lot of the big box stores don't do that. They'll just buy your rifle and then in turn resell it for whatever they have because they have the inventory.
And I think the worst place for a firearms owner is to actually take a rifle to a pawn shop or to a gun owner or to a gun dealer or to a big box retailer who buys firearms. I think that's absolutely the worst way to throw away your money. I think
absolutely.
you are going to take a hit on that, probably on the order of losing at least 70% of the value that you should be able to recoup.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of the things that was kind of like reiterating the lesson. Just make sure that if you gotta sell your guns, make sure you sell it to a buddy who's gonna hold them for you.
Right, and especially if you get into like a financial jam at that point. Things may change. You may be able to get them back, and it's always nice to know who you can almost kind of create a private pawn with or something. And I'll be honest with you, I've had to do that a couple of times, and I've tried to buy them back, and some of them I haven't been able to buy back, and it broke me. But I got a much better deal privately than I would have at a pawn shop, and without any kind of associated paperwork and all that. Just to be honest with you, paperwork's the enemy.
Yeah, well, and. The cool thing is, and I want to give a big shout out to Edgar at Acme Arms. A lot of the stuff that he's got for sale is I would say it's commensurately priced with what the market is asking, and real easy guy to talk to. I think I chewed on his ear for a half hour. He didn't have any problems with me, and of course, I was in uniform, so that probably helped a little bit. But he didn't have any problem taking his time, talking to me about every single one of the firearms. Let me handle them all. Let me take a look and feel them up.
What did he have? What did he have pistol wise?
So he has he had a 38 special from Smith and Wesson Model 10. He won a 375 for that. He had a Star Model 30M 9mm for $319. Rock Island 1911.
Those star pistols, the 30M and the Model B are pretty close to each other, and those are actually fairly reliable 1911 style pistols. Although magazines are a little tough and pricey to come by, but they can be had. But if you get a good one, that's a fairly reliable pistol, especially for somebody who doesn't shoot any sort of competition or something. Maybe 50 rounds a month or something like that.
Yeah, so he actually had, surprisingly, I thought of you immediately. He had he had an FNFAL with a Brazil stamped. He had a Brazil stamped receiver on it from, it said Springfield Armory.
That's fairly interesting. That if it's a Brazil stamp receiver from Springfield Armory, that thing come into the United States probably sometime in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
And that was a completely different time in firearms laws. And boy, I'll bet you he wanted a chunk of money for that. I bet you he wanted somewhere near $800 for that.
Yeah, I think he was asking 900.
I wouldn't doubt that. Now, that's kind of funny that you brought that up because as a former FAL owner, I have a plethora of manuals and information and how-to books and tips and tricks and all that for them. And I'm in the process of moving stuff around, and these happen to become exposed today. And a friend of mine came in and found that and found some of the manuals for the FAL, and he just raved about how it was the greatest gun in the world. And I was like, well, if you think the FAL is the finest firearm ever made, you've never owned one.
Yeah.
If you do not buy your ammunition 10,000 rounds of the same lot at a time, you don't know the joy of the FAL. You know, I find the FAL to be, it's a really good rifle. Probably would have been great in 5.56. I find it to be a little bit temperamental in 7.62 by 51. I think the gas setting on it is doom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anytime you're working with a gas regulating system, you got to find the happy medium.
Right. FAL is also quite heavy. It's not a light rifle by any means. I mean, there's a reason why they exported, most of them to where the land of, 6'8" Africans. That's a very, very large rifle, and it takes a commensurately large man to carry it for, 500 miles on a march or something.
Yeah. So, in addition to him having that Mossberg 590, stainless steel marine model, he had the Maverick 88 and 20 gauge for $225, and I thought that was kind of interesting to have on the rack. A Maverick 88 is it's a good starter shotgun. I think that's something in a 20 gauge pump that's something that you could teach your kids to use on birds. In a pinch, you could use it for home security. Just a very good all around. It could be good for rabbits, could be good for squirrels. You can do the whole gamut of small game.
Right. I happen to have a special soft spot in my heart for the Maverick series, produced by Mossberg. They are made in Eagle Pass, Texas, or at least the receivers are made in Eagle Pass, Texas. Some of the other parts are made in Mexico, and it's a little less robust than the 500 series. Shotguns from Mossberg. One of the main differences, the main differences right off being the placement of the safety selector on the two shotguns, and the Mossberg 500 has twin transfer bars, and the Maverick only has a single one. It's a very decent, very operable budget price shotgun. It does accept Mossberg barrels, and they actually kind of make some fairly interesting shotguns with options that used to be premium items from Mossberg. And earlier you brought up the 590, and I kind of got excited about that because that was one of the very first pump shotguns I lusted after and was unable to acquire. And one of the really nice things about the 590 was it came standard with the ability to carry two more shells than a regular 500. And with a 20-inch barrel on it, that was I think it had a heat shield, and then it came with a pistol grip pack or whatever that came with it. And some of them had folding stocks, and it was a fairly neat shotgun. But what really grabbed me was the extra capacity. And the Maverick series, they now have an 88 8-shot, so it's the same exact capacity as the 590 at a significantly lower price.
Right.
And by significantly lower, I mean $150 lower. And you get the same capacity and the same calibers, and you may not have the exact same look, and you have to figure out where safety mechanisms are. If you're trained to one way or not. And you have to be, aware that it's not got probably the same longevity, but it's a damn functional shotgun for, I'd say, 95% of the population.
Well, and that's one of those things that you're not going to break the bank. I think when it comes to either the Maverick or the 590 in the Mossberg line, I would figure that you can't really get better than the 500. Especially if you have one of those field combos you can use for both deer and then take it up high for bird shooting. That's something that's really good. Most of them have ported barrels, a lot of different configurations available when it comes to the stocks, and then you can choose between the synthetic and the wood stock. They've even gone to doing like the hydro dipping of the action in the stock too, to make it very specific for folks if they want to do upland hunting or down in the duck woods.
And I think a lot of that, some of it's not hydro dipping, some of it is actually molded into the plastic, and it's not bad. It's far more durable, I think, than hydro dipping. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like these pre-camouflage shotguns.
Well, I think that they have their place, especially for folks that do duck hunting. Is it going to make you more accurate? No. But if you're trying to blend in with your surroundings, that has a good feel to it. Me personally, since I suck so bad at shooting birds, I could have a picture of corn on the shotgun. It wouldn't matter. It's not going to bring them any closer to me.
Yeah, no kidding. Duck crack. That's what you need.
Yeah, if they made such a thing.
One
of the things I wanted to talk about also was the Model 835, the Ultimag. I've got bad shoulders. And most shotguns that I know, they can shoot either the 2 3/4 inch or the 3-inch shells, but the Ultimag can handle the 3.5-inch magnums. What's your take on the Magnum shells?
Well, I'll tell you, those great big red candlesticks are nifty if you're shooting a lot of duck, or happen to have a goodly supply of those things. I find shooting the 3.5-inch to be somewhat uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's necessarily painful, but I will confess to not wanting to shoot 3.5 inchers all day long. I'll stick with 2.5 or 2 3/4 or threes. I also find that shotguns that are capable of accepting the 3.5-inch magnums generally do not accept the shorter Agula mini slugs or the mini buckshot or any of the mini 12-gauge shells, and that is a compromise to be able to fit more ammunition into a shotgun. I think in a 6-shot shotgun, I think it'll give you an extra 3 shells, and they don't necessarily feed reliably in the 835. Can't really say I'm a fan necessarily of the 835. I don't have a problem with it, but it's not something that I'm necessarily looking for. And somewhat similar with the 930. That's just not something that's calling me either.
So what do you think about the combos of the 500, where you can get the combo shotgun with the barrels for turkey and for deer? I think one being slugs and one being regular shot.
I haven't seen that. They used to come the total package or something. I think they called that for a little while, and it came with a 500 action, and it had the 6-round magazine, and of course it was plugged, and you could easily remove the plug to have it. It came with an 18.5-inch barrel, and it came with a 22-inch barrel and a 26-inch barrel. I think the 26-inch barrel was rifled and ported. The middle barrel was rifle imported, and then the long barrel was a smooth bore. And I think that kit ended up coming out being maybe about $50 more. And unfortunately, I don't think that sold quite as well as it should have. And that was a deal because, I mean, I recently did this, try and buy a Mossberg barrel, of any kind. It's going to be $90 to $150 depending on what you want.
Yeah, definitely. So, I've seen them for $125.
Right. So I mean, that's easy to. That's kind of easy to overlook if you're not familiar with the price of spares and stuff. But generally, I find Mossberg shotguns to be excellent. I will say that Mossberg makes an excellent double shotgun. It's quite expensive. I cannot afford one. They also make a fairly interesting double shotgun that I wish I could get my hands on. It was a stainless steel, and it had a polymer all-weather stock to it, and it was so very interesting that I really found it to be just an incredible object of lust, to be quite frank with you. I have to. Sorry, I have to interrupt. I just stepped outside and I realized that I left my truck on, so we're gonna have to go outside.
the live radio.
Yeah. And now the dog thinks she's going with me. I'm sorry, sweetheart. You sit your monkey ass down.
There you go. So yeah, I think that we don't get to cover shotguns so often, and that's one of the things to me that growing up, I know that shotguns for you were real useful. For me, they weren't real useful until I moved here, and now there are certain counties where it's shotgun only. Thankfully and fortunately enough, where I hunt, you can use any legal method you can use, but there's no restrictions against you can't use centerfire rifle, or you can only use slug or whatnot. Thankfully, we don't have that, but in a lot of the areas around the country, there are those type of restrictions. I think for deer, places like Ohio, I think maybe even Iowa are shotgun only. And that to me, it's so foreign, because growing up in the Western United States, it's like, rifles are the thing because we have so much land, and usually anytime you're in a hunting area, you've got a good distance between you and the nearest bit of civilization. So it's been some getting used to me to be around people that are saying, "Okay, we can only use shotgun in this county."
Well, and I'm not necessarily used to any sort of restrictions other than a minimum size. I'm not necessarily a fan of restrictions like that. I find them to be, I don't want to call them repressive, but not necessarily forward-thinking and unnecessarily restrictive. I think a lot of laws that create for shotgun only, where in other states there's a rifle, I think a lot of those laws come because there's a significant amount of fear and paranoia that, we see it on a daily basis, and just in the media, never mind social media, or in games, or in music, and movies, or any of that other,
Yeah, and the funny thing is that we talk about the media, we talk about advertising. Any time you looking at television lately, if it's a show and they want to get some viewership up, the graphic and the lasting image that they'll try and put in somebody's head is a scene with an explosion and the protagonist or hero, reaching forward, pointing a gun at something indeterminate. That's really, it's interesting to me how the media tries to sell the fear of the average person holding guns, but TJ Hooker can do it and it's no big deal.
Well, geez, TJ Hooker, you're showing your age. That's just sad.
Yeah, I know. If you really want to know how, if you really want to know how bad it shows my age, my wife went to Walmart today and bought me a pair of underoos.
They don't make underoos for adults.
I shit you not. It is a pair
That's-
of underoos.
Well, okay, so what is your
Captain
design?
America. Captain America underoos.
Well, honestly, I'm glad you didn't say like choo-choo trains or anything.
Hey, you ease back on the choo-choo trains.
Or race cars, because race cars end up leaving skid marks.
Skid marks and racing stripes. Rubbing his racing.
Boy, hit them brakes. I can smell the brakes cooking.
That's the clutch, man. That's the clutch.
Something popping.
Yep. So yeah, I just wanted to say we are getting into we're having some unseasonable weather where I'm at, and it actually got me thinking. We hit a regional all season or all time high for high temperature. We had 84 degrees today.
Oh man, it was like 87 here. It was ungodly hot. It was just brutal hot here. I mean, it was not my favorite.
Yeah, it got me thinking. Maybe this is the weekend to get out and instead of trying to hunt deer, because it's gonna be pretty warm. If you don't get a deer on the ground and get into a process,
it's definitely the weekend to get out. I'll tell you that right now. I totally know that.
So yeah, you gotta get out there and do some shooting.
I'd love to, but I have a couple pressing things on the books here before I get to go shoot again here. It should not be necessarily cryptic. I'm in the process of moving, and it's a little bit tough for me. I'm condensing into a much smaller area, and
You're downsizing, to use corporate speak.
I am downsizing. I'm right sizing.
Right sizing. Yeah, there you go. Because you were living above your means for so long.
I absolutely, yeah. I was high on the hog, Me and Bill Gates were pulling bongs, at the top of the Ritz. So yeah, I've been a little bit preoccupied. That also kind of brings up how much value do you hold on things that are heavy when you have limited
increasingly
space?
less.
Right, and it really did, and made me think about some items I have multiples of.
Yeah, so that's the funny thing. I seem to remember you and I doing the same exercise about 15 years ago, right-sizing our mother's house, and
and very similar. I think you have picked up an inherited disease from your mother, and I have too much shit, man. I have too much shit.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, there's a surprisingly high number of just stray bullets in my house. It was just disturbingly high.
Oh, well, as long as you're not trying to sell unlabeled cans of food at rock bottom prices, I think you'll be okay.
I am not selling raw milk nor unpasteurized peanut butter or any of those other evil hippie items that require the SWAT team to bust in and flashbang a child.
Yeah, go figure. So yeah, Michael, I think we need to hit some 4 rules of firearm safety.
All right, I think that would be a lovely idea. The rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and ensure that it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Do not cover anything you don't wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what's your target, know what's beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, the most important rule, the rule that gets violated in almost every sort of news story that has a negligent discharge, is keep the booger hook off the bank switch until you're ready to discharge the weapon.
Yeah.
There can be no accidental discharges because you have to make a conscious decision to put a finger on a trigger and pull it. So bust that Hollywood training and, practice some trigger discipline.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is I live in a fairly small city, but we've been hearing in my area we've been hearing some shooting late at night for the last couple nights, and come to find out we've had some officer involved shootings with some local gangs, and it's interesting because that this is such a learned community, and guns are just so evil that you wouldn't expect them to be here, and it's always the same type of people that are getting rounded up by the cops.
And is this something that is a demographic that's unmentionable by many news
Yeah,
stations?
they are picking up a lot of Canadians.
I would understand that being a former restaurant employee at one point.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think there's a large disparity in the demographic that commits crime, and that's really where a lot of the issue lies. And it's in that certain demographic in an age group between 15 and 35, and honestly, that's prime age for the MTV hip hop rap music and the glorification of the ghetto. I mean, they had a little movement there for a while called it Ghetto Fabulous, and it exalted the fact that you were poor and revel in your in your food stampedness, I guess, is the way they kind of wanted it to be, and really kind of preached an evil message. And now you've kind of got the outcome from that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean we've had actually some of the local convenience stores that rhyme with 7-Eleven have been knocked off, and actually talked to a couple of the clerks. I ended up stopping at the 7-Eleven that was held up a few weeks ago. Talked to a couple of the employees, and I said, is this happening more frequently? Because I thought I had heard, about 6-7 months ago that store was targeted. And then recently there was a home invasion that transformed into a kidnapping, which transformed into an armed robbery at that location. And I asked the attendants, I was like, I've heard about your store location in the news a couple times. Is this the same store? And they're like, yeah, you don't want to be on shift here between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And I'm like, why 2 and 3 in the afternoon? He's like, that's because that's the most dangerous time for us, because we got so much traffic coming in here, and all it takes is for one of us to take our eyes off of a certain group of folks, and the certain group of folks was actually represented by one of the guys behind the register. And he was saying, yeah, he's like, my people come in here and I got to keep my eye on them.
well, it's almost become a sport, and I live in a fairly rural area too, so I can kind of relate to, or not necessarily relate, but I understand this extreme poverty that afflicts that certain demographic, and not necessarily because there's a lot of those that demographic in my area. It's just that my area happens to be not necessarily the most aggressively income producing land in town, and that after successive generations of that and intervening generations with the same crushing poverty, it breeds a special kind of poverty, and it's a poverty of the mind, to where there's been such a devastating poverty that anybody who has more than you is rich, and it's okay to rob from them because you can go get another one because you already got one. And that's probably the sickest and the most twisted thing. And it's never really from. I mean, there's a decent amount of theft and crime that affects. I'd say the large faceless corporations. Walmart or Megalomart, whatever. But a disproportionate amount of that property crime theft that may not seem like a high dollar amount, but can be devastating for somebody who's really kind of broke. Boy, that just really has a horrid effect on communities.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the most underrepresented and oversaturated community in terms of political representation for generations, you're talking about the African American community. How long was Charles Rangel a representative of Harlem, New York? Decades, right?
But you see, you know what? I'm going to step out and I'm going to say something that you might find to be I don't know. Maybe you may agree with it, and you may not agree with it. But I don't necessarily think that Charles Rangel represents the black community, the African American community.
No. I
Charles,
don't think he necessarily represents them. I'm saying from that community. He gets elected from that community, and he expected himself to uphold a certain lifestyle that his constituents, whom he was supposed to represent in Congress, would expect a man of his status, to display and live. That was his words directly. Considering he had the souped up Cadillac Escalade.
My people want some royalty.
Yeah, they want to see what he said. They expect to see me like this. So the interesting thing to me is that no matter where you're at, affluence is going to breed jealousy. Jealousy is going to breed resentment, and resentment is going to lead to people making dumb decisions. And how do you protect yourself from that? You gotta make a choice to be armed.
Well, I'll tell you what. For my money, the best way to be armed is with a firearm that you can afford the ammunition for, that you can train with, and that you are more than confident in using. So that means if you have all you can afford or all you can handle is a 22 long rifle. I think the true definition of firepower is and stopping power is putting a bullet on target. I think it's far better to pop somebody with a 22 short 2 or 3 times than miss them several times with a 44 Magnum.
Yeah, missing doesn't do you any good unless you work for the New York City Police Department.
Right, and then at that point it saves lives.
Yeah, unless you're an unintended consequence.
Well, that's, at least if they missed, that. Because what was it? I think there was something like it was an average of like 32 shots or something fired per like NYPD firearms engagement or something like that. They have a horrible hit percentage, something like it's like 4%, just something just abysmal.
Those are the people that need to get the 30 caliber machine guns.
They just need officer equipped with tactical nuclear weapons or something. Little small, half kiloton or quarter kiloton bombs that will knock out you like 2 square blocks. Just get everybody. What the hell? They're all guilty anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this weekend coming up, I'd like to try and switch my routine up. I have been going out in the mornings looking for deer. We, like I said, overnight for a couple nights, my hunting area dropped down to 29, 30 degrees. So we actually had the first freezes in effect for those areas. Interesting enough, I've got a trail cam out and was actually able to come across some photos of bucks starting to spar. So we are getting some pre-rut activity in my area, and firearm season opens for us on 19 November.
That is going to be a healthy harvest for you, because I saw a picture of those things. Some of them were pretty good size, and then there were some pretty cool varmints out there too.
Yeah, actually, I was able to come across a couple of images of a coyote that has come across my area, and I don't know if we covered it before, but we have the hybridization of coyotes with wolves going on, and it's been confirmed in my area. So one of those things is going to be a target of opportunity for me. Hopefully the day that I shoot a deer, we'll be able to do it early enough in the day where I can set out the gut pile and hopefully get something coming in to feed on the guts.
That would be kind of neat. And that's a good chance to play with that 300 blackout that you
that's the plan. That's the plan.
Tenderly and gingerly constructed.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. That's one of those things that I haven't had a chance to do yet, and I've been remiss is that I haven't been able to put together that last 223 Wild. It's dry fit together right now. I haven't had a chance to get it all torqued down to spec. When you don't have a workshop, you don't even have a table that you can attach your vise.
Nick, I am about to head in that direction, and I shudder at the fact I will not have
exactly
to work on things anymore. I will not have a large place where I can dump stuff, or some place where I can bang around and make noxious chemical smells, and boy, I'm really gonna miss this place.
Yeah, so. Interesting enough, man. Hopefully within the next couple weeks, I'll be able to start with the change of weather. Maybe I've got a couple tarps laid out, so maybe I can just get a table, set it out there, put the tarp over it, and throw some bungee cords around it so the tarp just keeps the thing dry and the tarp doesn't blow away. But I'd really hope I could get a table that I could build into a shed. It's just with the amount of storage that I have. I'm lucky I have my gun safes upstairs because there's just no other room for it. There's no.
Honestly, you are lucky somebody moved them sons of bitches upstairs for you. Cause
no, no one moved those. I did those myself.
That is a sign of a true man is moving a gun safe upstairs.
Yeah, and this isn't a stack on case. Let me tell you that. These are two German-made to German specifications for their gun laws safes, which have about 500 pounds, total weight between them. One is a 300-pound safe, and the other is a 200-pound safe. And yeah, thank goodness for the hand carts or the dollies with the stairs, the stair sliding mechanism on it.
Oh yeah. Those are very nice.
Yeah, talk about
another nice move is to not move into a place with a second story.
Yeah,
and another nice move is to throw out all couches that have a hide-a-bed in them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. In my area, two-story homes are the norm. You literally have to be in a trailer or a double wide in order to have a single floor home.
That's exactly what I'm getting. I don't want anything with stairs. I just don't like the upstairs.
Yeah,
I do not like. I'll tell you what. I'll have an upstairs, but everybody will have like folding camping furniture. A bunch of folding camping chairs and cots and roll-out tables and whatnot. I do not want to carry heavy stuff up and downstairs anymore.
Yeah. So if I got a chance to break open that safe and use a 300 blackout on a coyote, I will definitely do that. One of my buddies out here has a hunting lease, and we might be able to turn around and say that we shot it on his land because his hunting club gives him a $50 bounty for every coyote that gets shot.
Well, that's way cool. Yeah, go cash in on that. It's one of the few times a firearm make you money outside of your job.
Well, and the other side is the farmer whose land I hunt. He has a bounty of a bottle of brandy on the same coyote. So we may get 2 for 1 on this deal.
That'll work. Yeah, double up, double dip.
That's in today's political climate. You got to double dip.
You got to double dip. Elect me. I wish to insider trade. No, I got to give credit to Jules for that. That was what she was. Jules is going to run for Senate. Her tagline was going to be "Elect me. I want to be an inside. I want to be able to insider trade." And I thought that had some had some legs. That she should have run with that. I think people would appreciate the refreshing honesty. I mean, it's nothing like the promises of a free pony from our rubber-booted overlord Herman Supreme. But tell you what, I'd vote for that dude with a rubber boot on his head before I voted for Hillary.
Yeah,
probably vote for him. Or Trump.
So just to make sure, in many states, states are now coming up on their deadlines for voting. So if you so wish to participate, check to make sure that you get in before your state's voting deadline, because Virginia has just passed on the 17th of October.
Make sure you also write a letter to the Electoral College, the people who really count.
see if I can get admission to matriculate at the Electoral College.
I'm sorry, Mario. Your princess is in another castle, and that castle happens to be owned by a large corporation and financed by Goldman Sachs.
No. All right, Michael, we're getting in front of the bumper music because it always takes us by surprise. I wanted to give a big shout out to our boy at Oddball, and Michael, it's great to talk to you. Let's see